Beatriz Villarroel. I'm going to be meeting up with Beatrice in about a week and a half, both here in Edinburgh and in Hexham, UK. We will both be speaking at Cosmic Frequencies, coming to you guys August 9th in the UK. We played the commercial for it. Link is in the show notes, cosmicfrequencies.org, if you want to come see us give our talks live and be part of an awesome panel discussion with some people from the BBC, from the Kielder Observatory in the UK. We're going to have a great time. But Beatrice has been busy, whether it's the Baltic Sea anomaly or now these two papers that she recently put into preprint, Suzanne. So this story has been blowing up all over.
I think this is the story of the week.
This is the story of the week. I'm still trying to make sense of it. You know, you and I are part of a chat group that talks all about all the latest stuff in the UFO world. And I had to just straight up ask the group, guys, dumb this down for me, because I am trying to make heads and tails of all of this and I'm having a hard time. So what I have come to deduce is Beatrice came out with two separate papers recently. One of them having to do with the possible connections between UAP events and nuclear testing events, which was pretty interesting. However, that was not the big major bombshell story. It was actually the second paper that she would put into preprint. And by preprint, we mean these papers still need to be discussed and evaluated and peer reviewed by the scientific community. But what they found was interesting. So what I'll do right here, Suzanne, is just read very quickly about the first paper, the one about nuclear testing sites and whatnot. It's pretty interesting. Since 2017, the Vanishing and Appearing Sources, VASCO company that Beatrice has founded, has attempted to look for stars and other sources of light that have disappeared from view or have dimmed unusually over the 20th and 21st centuries. The team has previously found that around 100 stars have disappeared from view without an explanation. In the latest study from the group, which has not yet completed peer review, they focused on transient star-like objects observed in the pre-Sputnik era, or before any satellites had been launched into orbit by humans. The team identified transients captured by the Palomar Observatory Sky Survey, which scanned the skies from November 19, 1949 to April 28, 1957. According to the team, if transients occurred more frequently around weapons tests, it could indicate that they are unknown atmospheric phenomenon resulting from the nuclear blasts. But the team also considered UAP sightings, noting that they had been reported around nuclear and weapon tests as well as around nuclear facilities. As well as this, the team found a smaller association between UAP sightings and transient observations, with the association being stronger when multiple transients were captured. As for an explanation, the team suggests a few. The second, attributed largely from UFO lore, is that UAPs may be attracted to nuclear weapons and tests, and they are real objects captured in our atmosphere or in orbit around the Earth. But a more likely explanation proposed, given that we have no evidence of alien life thus far, is that nuclear tests trigger an atmospheric phenomenon which results in the captured transients and potentially UAP sightings. Whew. Okay, so that is a mouthful, but that was the first paper, and that's not even the bombshell one. So any peripheral or surface level thoughts on this one, Suzanne, before we move to the bombshell?
I want this all to connect. I want both the articles to connect, you know, hoping again that we can make some sense of this. But this gal, she is something. We're lucky to have her and her work. I'm anxious to hear what comes out of you two chatting later. But she's so bright and her findings, and she's very calm about it. Her partner, not so much. Dennis, what's Dennis's last name?
Osberg?
Yes.
Osberg.
He
didn't care for that video he put out.
I didn't either. I'm sure everyone in our group saw it, where he was frightened, actually, and said she was frightened as well, but she seemed quite calm to me about it.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the problem. Like, look, I have hyped up stuff Like I hyped this week that I have a big announcement coming for Somewhere in the Sky. So I announced an announcement coming up, which is something that makes me roll my eyes in the UFO world. But I did it. Look, the guy, he was a part of one of these studies, or at least was made aware of it. It unsettled him. It excited him, and a part of me is like, I don't blame him, but another part of me is like, let's not put the cart in front of the horse. And that's where someone like Dennis is different from Beatrice.
Right.
She's someone who said, let the data speak for itself. Let the paper speak for itself. Let's get it peer reviewed and let's see if we were right or if we were wrong. Um, you know, maybe Dennis just doesn't have that much experience when it comes to how the scientific method works when it comes to stuff like vanishing stars or this type of stuff. But he clearly was affected personally,
Very
maybe
much.
ontologically by whatever news came from this paper. But yeah, I don't think it helped anything, but certainly now that this paper is out and people can look at it, I don't think in the long run it's going to hurt this or help it, to be honest. But
I hope not.
yeah,
It did cost me a sleepless night though, because I view her as so calm and thought oriented instead of reactionary. And then his reaction, gosh, it got one out of me. I was like, what in the world are we
what in the
dealing with?
world?
And then she had said something on social media to the effect of, um, I wish it weren't the case, what I found.
Mm.
Did you see that? You may not have seen that one. I don't think I included it
Yes,
for you,
she
but
did say that.
and that was sort of all in the same 24-hour period, and that was the unsettling mark. So
Yeah, so we'll dive in to this next story because I think that might have been what she was
maybe so,
maybe talking
maybe
about. Um,
makes more
but I
sense.
don't know.
I
I
don't know.
I will clarify a lot of this when I meet up with her next week. She I want to send my best out to her right now. She's not feeling
Not feeling
too
well.
well. She's kind
Yeah.
of been off of social media for the last few days, and maybe it has a lot to do with she's been doing a lot. Whether it's these two papers, whether it's her work with the Baltic Sea anomaly, she's going to be traveling over here to the UK in just about a week or so. Like she's a busy person. She's a very busy person, and like me, I'm sure that drastically affects your immune system and you get sick. I get sick every time I, go out on
I do too.
these things I do and whatnot. But all this to say, she's a busy person. But I will be sitting down with her personally for a face-to-face interview for the Somewhere in the Skies podcast while we're in Hexham, or possibly here in Edinburgh. And we will hash it out. I want to set the record straight on these two papers. If there's been any updates, what this means for humanity, what this means for astronomy and for the scientific community, and just what this means for the possibility of aliens. And that's where I want to go next to the second
Okay.
paper. So let me talk about this one. I don't have as much, but I do have an interesting tweet that you shared with me and from our friend Tom Thompson.
Yes.
Cortex Zero, I believe, is his kind of handle or whatever on Twitter. But he had some pretty interesting stuff about this. Uh, an interesting stuff to say about this story. Ooh, the matcha's getting to me. Wow. Matcha is getting to me. But let me read about the second story, the one that's kind of the holy shit. In the second paper, Beatrix's VASCO project has proposed the presence of a structured grid of unidentified objects in near Earth orbit, dating back to the late 1940s and 50s. So, again, pre Sputnik era. There should not be man made satellites
No
that could
satellites at that time.
account for some of these things. Now, again, her whole thing is vanishing stars, like stars that seem to appear, disappear, and maybe even come back. And that would basically say this is not a dying star. This is a vanishing and reappearing star. That's not normal. That doesn't happen.
Not supposed to.
So
No.
yeah, exactly. So basically, with this work, these were recorded at a time when no nation on Earth had and technological capacity to place satellites. Her team reports hundreds of thousands of single non-aligned transients in the VASCO catalog. That is point-like sources that appear in one photographic plate and disappear in subsequent surveys, some of which may be artificial reflections or minor artifacts. However, the aligned groups, the multiple transient candidates with 4 or 5 point like flashes along a narrow strip, are comparatively rare and are the focus of a more detailed investigation. Now, in the second paper, I believe they pointed out 5 of these that
Right.
they have found, that these are real. They can be captured along all of the quote unquote what they call plates.
The
And
plate, I did a little research on that. It might be a good time to just insert this quickly.
can you please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
basically, they're photo positives or negatives, and they are of an image, and they're placed on this glass that has a coating of like a light sensitive emulsion. And
Okay.
that's what she's gotten hold of. And so I don't know if this is a process that's still used today or if this is just really old school capturing of this kind of data, but that's what the glass plate is.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. I was a little confused on
I was
what do
too.
the plates mean?
Yeah.
I still am, but thank you.
Literally
Um,
glass.
okay. So while the overall catalog holds thousands or even hundreds of thousands of single transient detections, only a small subset forms the statistically significant aligned patterns that Beatrice highlighted as candidate non-terrestrial artifacts, she calls them.
Yeah.
So if we are to take into consideration these 5 like for sure ones and all these hundreds of thousands of others, pre-Sputnik era, where space debris was not really a thing at the time, this you could surmise, and this is a big long shot, kind of like Avi Loeb again. Beatrice taking the hits for the rest of the UFO
Absolutely.
community and taking the hits from the scientific community. You could imagine this as like a grid around the Earth. And if these are non terrestrial artifacts, could this mean that for a very long time, we have been monitored in a very elusive, uh, transient way by some sort of non human intelligence? So,
I'm just going to throw this out too.
whew,
No way, if that's the situation, our government doesn't know that.
right?
No way.
Exactly. Like, and then the whole argument comes in. I think it's brought up in the paper, and Tom Thompson will bring this up in his tweet that at the time, Menzel, who was a huge like UFO sort of debunker at the time and whatnot, he literally like destroyed evidence of like plates at the time when these things were captured. For what purpose? We don't truly know, but
And I
that's
want to know
interesting.
from, yeah, and I want to know from Beatrice, how did she get these plates? Be sure and add that to the list. I want to know how she worked her puzzle to get these.
Who like told her where to look and how
Right.
to find?
Right.
Mm-mm.
And then was able
Weird,
to test them to she physically has them. So
right?
yes, I don't know, but add all those lists of questions to her, to your
Yeah.
outline for her.
Do you mind if I read this tweet?
Go
It's a
for it.
little long, but Tom did a great job of kind of breaking down the implication of something like this. If it is to be peer reviewed and proven, it's so interesting. Let me bring
It
this
is.
full
You did a
screen.
great job.
So Tom says if Dr. Beatrice, if her research holds and statistically it appears to, then we may be standing on the edge of a potentially jaw dropping astronomical revelation. Her work with VASCO Project suggests the presence of a structured grid of UAP basically in near Earth orbit, dating back to the late 1940s and 50s. They were recorded at the time when no nation on Earth had technological capacity to place satellites in orbit. Think about that. Holy shit. The implications are hard to put into words, really. If orbiting artificial objects were present decades before the launch of Sputnik, then it is not just possible, but highly probable that these anomalies were detected by terrestrial observations. Government agencies, especially in the US, were actively monitoring the skies during the early Cold War period using powerful ground based telescopes and radar systems. It is likely they knew. And yet, where are the records? Consider the strange actions of Donald Menzel, a prominent Harvard astronomer, staunch UFO skeptic, who reportedly destroyed or restricted access to numerous astronomical plates in the 1950s. These plates may have contained the very photographic evidence that corroborates Beatrice's findings. It is difficult not to see this as a form of preemptive suppression, suggesting that sensitive data from the mid 1940s onward was quietly removed from public view because it revealed too much. If this orbital grid persisted in the satellite era, as many suspect, then it is virtually certainly that it would have been rediscovered by later generations of spacefaring technology, whether by the International Space Station, NORAD, NASA, or a number of sophisticated tracking systems. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. But what are we looking at, and whose technology is it? Are we observing the remnants of a vast surveillance or infrastructure network maintained by a non human intelligence operating in secrecy for generations, perhaps millennia? A quiet observer species that has built a persistent orbital presence undetected until now. We are left with questions that demand answers. These results require formal investigation, not dismissal. They demand a reassessment of what we think we know about our skies and who has been sharing them with us. It will be fascinating to see how mainstream astronomy responds. Will they meet this with open inquiry, or will they retreat behind well worn doctrines, unwilling to disturb the myth of cosmic solitude? Because if Beatrice is right, then solitude was never ours to begin with. Wow.
Wow.
I love how he ended that. What he's a good writer. I got to
He
hire
is
that
a
guy.
really good writer, isn't he? Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
brings up a lot of the things we brought up, but in a more eloquent way. You know, basically, if this is real, if we come to find out that there's been some sort of transient non-human grid around our planet for this long, like that could change everything. And
Absolutely everything.
how is it working in tandem now with all the stuff that is out there?
And why
Like,
can't we see it now? You know, I saw
right.
Dalen in the chat ask, where is this grid now?
Is
And
it
it's an
gone?
excellent question. Has their technology, as our technology developed, has theirs developed staying ahead of us, or they take extra precautions? Or is it now gone? Hard to imagine once a grid is in place that it's gone, but maybe, I don't know. And here's the other thing I don't know. If this was even a possibility, why is mainstream media not picking it up?
Hmm. Again, I think it'll come down to they're always, 6 months late
Yep,
coming to the party. At the same time, like I understand, and Beatrice is being very responsible about this.
she
It
is.
needs to be peer reviewed. Don't go running for the hills yet and packing up and looking for a cave to live in or whatever. But like, I don't know. It's fascinating to me if we could connect both of these papers. That if transient UAP, as it were showing up during nuclear testing and whatnot, and then we have the Cold War, and this quote unquote grid was monitoring the planet. Could that grid be there because they knew we were now testing nuclear technology? Did they see the atomic bomb go off and be like, "Bye, grid,
Right.
we're gone"? Okay,
They are who
nope.
we thought they are. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating to theorize for sure. And again, that's where we are right now. This is all theory until it can be proven.
I would also like for you to ask her what she thinks her timeline is on getting peer review or
Mm,
next steps. Could she just lay out the next steps and as she anticipates them, and we won't hold her to them. I'm sure she's not in charge of when a peer review group does its work. But it'd be nice to know when we might hear the next piece of this puzzle.
yeah, absolutely. But either way, it is a, if proven, groundbreaking story. And now that we have the beginnings of it, it's now about finding, the meat in the sandwich
Right.
and then putting the condiments on it and serving it to us nice and hot. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
I do wish national medias, the big medias, would pick it up and cover it because what an incredible way anthropomorphically, I'm not, me got good words too today. Um,
It's contagious.
it's contagious to get the public thinking about this, and maybe, take some of the edge off the ontological shock coming for those who don't absorb this stuff every day.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. It'd be a lot. It'd be a lot to process. Like when you and I read the story, we are like, "Oh, hell yeah, let's do this." Like, but for like someone like, Dennis, her kind of co-investigative partner with the Baltic Sea thing and stuff, like I can understand how it could be very scary. And it is, don't get me wrong. Like if this
Right.
is real, and it's not only like Big Brother spying on us here on our own planet with like, our own government surveilling every move we make, or other governments surveilling every move we make. We're now talking about a non-human intelligence that's been surveilling us for decades, decades,
And that
decades,
is
centuries.
clearly technologically superior in such a way as to render us probably
Yep.
neutralized to it.
Exactly. And the fact that they can like blink in and out of existence without being detected. Oh boy. Oh
Yep.
gosh.
Well, here we go on this adventure as soon as she gets peer reviewed, right?
Yep. Yep.